Hi everyone, and welcome to Book Talks with Miss Thomas. I'm Miss Thomas. I love to talk about books. If you like to talk about books too, please subscribe. I upload on Sundays and Wednesdays, and sometimes on Fridays. So this is my first DNF video, my did not finish book video. And the reason for that is because I love books. I want everyone to love books, and I don't like to criticize books. But I had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine recently, and she was saying how she finished a book because she felt like she had to, and like she had this responsibility to finish what she started with her book. And I didn't agree with that, and I told her so. And so I wanted to do a video and just share with you guys that there are lots of books I begin and don't finish. You know, I don't think there's a rule that you have to finish every book you start. If you don't like the book, you shouldn't keep reading it, unless, of course, your teacher makes you. All right, so I'm going to tell you real quick. My first did not finish is from the library, so I had to return it, but I'll post the image of the book up here. I read great things about this book. I was so excited to read it. And I guess there's a lesson in that too. Just because everyone else likes it doesn't mean I have to like it, and I didn't. It was called A Calling for Charles Barnes, and it was by Joshua Ferris. And the book was lauded as a very funny book. And, you know, I was really looking for a funny book. So I got that one and another book I'm going to mention later in this video because I wanted something light and funny. And I did not think this book was funny. I thought it was just a really long, ridiculous rant by this guy, Charlie Barnes. And he reminded me a lot of Willy Loman in Death of a Salesman. He had gone through 5 wives. He cheated on his wives. He had kids from different marriages, and you know, he couldn't understand why they hated him. And one of his sons liked him, and he decided, you know, that he was going to die. He had some kind of terrible illness, and so he went around telling everybody before he had the formal diagnosis that I think it was cancer, that he was going to die of cancer. And he was just very, oh, woe is me, poor me, pay attention to me, you know. And the other reason he reminded me of Willy Loman is because he was always looking for the next best thing. You know, he was just the character in the book. What was his name again? Charlie Barnes. He just seemed to think that, you know, there was always a bigger and better thing out there meant for him because he was so important and so self-involved and so annoying. So I definitely do not finish A Calling for Charlie Barnes. And by the way, these are just my did not finish for the month of January, this month. I wrote about this book in my journal from my coworker that I got for Christmas, and I wrote a long, plotless ramble about a late to middle-aged man with cancer. He had 5 marriages and children who hate him, except for one named Jake, who narrates the story. And I have story in quotes because it wasn't a story. It was all over the place. It was like, one day Charlie is going to be a clown that you can hire for parties. And the next day Charlie is going to be involved in finances somehow. I forget what his job was. But he was always all over the place, and he was just really annoying. And just one of the most self-involved characters I've ever read in a book. And it says, all of the characters were flat to me and nothing happened in the story. So I did not finish A Calling for Charlie Barnes by Joshua Ferris. Okay, another book that I did not finish is a collection of short stories by Rosamund Pilchard, and it's called A Place Like Home. And the reason I didn't finish this is because it was just a collection of short stories. I guess I need to preface it with why I checked this book out. If you've followed my channel at all, you know that I loved Winter Solstice by Rosamund Pilchard. I really enjoyed that book immensely, and I've recommended it to many people, and they've all said, wow, I really like that book. Thank you. So I went to the library and I got her latest and greatest, or so I thought, so I'd hoped. This is her most recent novel or publication, and it's called A Place Like Home, and it's a collection of short stories. And this one, I guess, proves the fact that just because you like an author doesn't mean you will like every single book by that author, or at least I didn't. I didn't like this book, but I loved this book. So the reason I didn't like this book is because it was a lot of, at least the ones that I read, were just very predictable romances. And they were just very light, fluffy romances that were extremely predictable. And the women in the book were just, oh, my whole world revolves around a man. Whatever will I do? The married man that, I was having an affair with is left his wife, but he doesn't want me, and so boo hoo. And then, oh, here's another man. That was my impression, at least of one particular short story in here. I think it was the first short story. And then the other short story was so similar to that I thought, okay, I give up. No offense, because I loved this book, Rosamund Pilchard's Winter Solstice. I will say, I did not think Winter Solstice was a romance. It had romance in it, but when I read this book, I didn't really put Rosamund Pilchard in the genre of romance. So I think that was my problem. I guess she's a romance writer, but this book has a lot more grit. It has a lot more to it than romance, and I liked that about this book. And the last DNF book that I want to talk about is very, very popular among a lot of readers, and I don't want to offend anybody who really loved the book. If you love the book, I think that's great. I do. I think we should all, have our opinions about books and enjoy reading and be, welcome to have differing opinions. That said, I really did not like The Sentence by, I think it's pronounced Louise Erdrich. Part of the problem was that I was expecting a funny book. I looked online, I was looking for a good book, and I read online that this was a book about a bookstore that was haunted by an annoying customer. And so to me, that's a premise for a really great book, a really funny book, a really light book. And that's not at all what this book was. So maybe I just went into it with the wrong expectations, but I just really, I didn't care for this book. I felt like it was interesting because during the book, the global pandemic hit. And so the characters in the book were very impacted by fear of COVID and wearing masks. And, that is just I think a tragic thing that has happened in this country, that, this pandemic has just had such a negative effect on so many of us. It's taken lives, and it's just caused so much heartache. And as a teacher, the virtual teaching and all of the terrible things that have happened. And I just didn't really, I guess I wasn't prepared to read about it. And I also felt like the author was almost capitalizing on some of the tragic things that happened by pushing their views on me. And, everyone's entitled to their views, but I did not go into the reading of this book with the expectation that I would be expected to have certain political views. And I went into it with the expectation that it would be, an entertaining book about a ghost in a bookstore. So I was very disappointed in this book. And some of the characters also really annoyed me. There was this one character who, she's like the stepdaughter, and she comes and lives with the narrator of the story. And, you find out she has a baby, and you find out in the book that, she's an unwed mother who was exploring by being in a pornographic movie. And, I'm supposed to empathize with her or sympathize with her. I was just disgusted by her. And then there was this passage where there was this lovely character. He was a customer in the bookstore, and the narrator was worried about him, and come to find out he'd had, I think it was a heart attack or a medical crisis of some sort. And she found this out because she saw his dog. But then come to find out the dog had died months before she saw him. And so the dog presumably was had died on behalf of the man so that he could live. And I didn't care for the book. So that's actually where I gave up. I was like 3/4 of the way done. And then I was like, okay, a ghost haunting a bookstore for entertainment, I can read. A dog dying on behalf of some man and then wandering the streets to say, hey, look at me. You thought I was gone, but actually I replaced this man's spirit or something. I felt like I was being told how to think in the book. And I really didn't agree with that. And I don't know, I just didn't like it. So I apologize to those of you who loved that book. I hope you can read and enjoy the book and maybe get a different experience from it. I didn't finish it. So those are my 3 DNFs this month. And I just want to let you know, I'm out there, I'm reading, I'm trying to find books that I can read and enjoy and learn and grow from. And, not all of them need to be finished. At least for me, I don't think that, it's necessary to finish a book. So I wanted to share that with you.